I think it's safe to say that nobody wants to visit the same place twice. I guess I say that though, and I've been to Bleak Falls Barrow like at least 24 times in my Skyrim playthroughs, but at the same time, I have 1,000 hours in that game. I mean, I think I would probably have to do the same thing multiple times at that point. Anyways though, we're talking today about the likelihood of locations being repeated in the Elder Scrolls 6. By that, I mean, are they going to have it be in Morrowind again, or Cyrodiil, or High Rock, or Hammerfell, or any place that has been visited before in a previous Elder Scrolls game? Now, it's worth noting right now that I'm not going to include Arena in it, because Arena did have every single province in it, technically. Like, you could just go everywhere. But I'm going to talk about some other games that were closer to when Arena was made, things like Daggerfall and some of the spin-off games and things like that. But before we get into the old ones, let's talk about the new ones. So, what is the likelihood that a Elder Scrolls game, or the Elder Scrolls 6 specifically, is going to be set in Morrowind, Oblivion, or Skyrim? Now, I'm going to say right now that I don't think that's super likely, and here's why. Now, it doesn't really come down to lack of player interest in visiting those locations and things like that. I actually think that player interest is very high, especially for Cyrodiil or Morrowind. Skyrim, of course, we visited more recently, so why would we have to go back there right away? But I think that the reason I don't think they're going to be set there is basically because we've already had newer games that have been set there, so what do they add to those games that make it feel like you're exploring a new land, even if you're going back to an old one? So, like, it would be great if they remade Morrowind or Oblivion. It would look fantastic on the new systems and everything, an updated version and stuff, but even if you had it in a different timeline, a lot of it's gonna be very similar. It's gonna have the same locations as before. You can't really add in that many more, because you'd have to, like, change all the land masses and stuff, and you'd have to make sure everything syncs up in timelines and all that, so it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. When you look at some of the bigger cities as well, they're ancient, so, like, Imperial City, it's gonna look exactly the same as it did, like, 200 years in the future or 200 years in the past, so you can't really make it look visibly different, or even really, like, switch up the layout for the player all that much. So it's because they've both been in, like, a proper 3D version of a game in Morrowind and Oblivion that I don't think they're going to be going back to those locations as primary locations anytime soon. DLC and stuff, always possible, never rule that out, but it's probably not going to be the setting for the next game. That being said, there's been other locations in games before. Redguard, of course, in Elder Scrolls Adventures. That was a game set in Hammerfell. And to be honest, that game was a spin-off, so it's a bit more feasible that they could go to Hammerfell and sort of rewrite some of the canon, because it wasn't widely played by as many people, and it just wasn't like a true entry in the series, so it's easier to kind of, switch things up and rewrite things a little bit. Then we talk about games like Daggerfall, which took place primarily in High Rock in that region. The thing is, though, when that game was made, it was in the 90s, and 3D games had just started to become a real thing at that point, and they couldn't really do a whole lot. Many of the locations looked exactly the same as other ones, and there wasn't a lot of variety to it. So I think that if you were going to go back and remake, say, Daggerfall, or remake the High Rock region, they could do a lot more in rewriting stuff and feel a bit freer with it, because it wasn't so well created in the first place by today's standards. So I think it's much more likely that we could see a game in High Rock than it is likely that we'll see one in a place like Morrowind, just because there's more that we potentially haven't seen there, you know? There's been so many advances in technology that the stuff they could do with the High Rock region is far and beyond what we've already seen from it, of course. So it's pretty much for these reasons that I don't think they're going to be set in the newer 3D versions of the games. I think that High Rock is definitely a possibility, and then people have been saying, like, all of Tamriel. I think that's a little bit too high of a hope to go for, but who knows, anything could happen. What do you guys think about this? Do you have any other points to add? Do you have any contradictory points? I want to hear them. Do you have any locations that you want to see revisited in a future Elder Scrolls game? Let me know what those are in the comments. If you want to support me, a couple different ways you can do that. Throw a tip on VidMe or go over to my Patreon. I got that set up now. $1 a month would be super awesome. You know you can afford it. What's that, like a coffee? Half a coffee? because coffee's expensive at most places now. Thanks to all the recent supporters as well. I love you guys. You're awesome. And I am Patty Jack. I will see you guys next time. Have a wonderful day.